My family drove 5 hours to rescue me from my failed life. My sister went live for 12,000 viewers. My mom started photographing the apartment. Then the officer explained who actually owned the building. My sister's jacket hit me in the face before she even said hello. Not metaphorically. Not as some dramatic opener I'm using to set a scene. I mean, she walked through my door, looked me dead in the eyes, and flicked her North Face off her shoulders directly into my face. Like I was a coat rack. Like I was furniture. Like I was exactly what she'd spent 3 years telling the internet I was. Nothing. Clear your stuff out, she said, already pulling out her phone to film. Your room is mine now. I caught the jacket, folded it, set it on the kitchen counter, and then I smiled. Not because it was funny, not because I was nervous and defaulting to politeness the way I used to in this family. I smiled because in that exact moment, standing in Unit 4B of a building I owned, being filmed by a sister who'd already queued up 12,000 viewers for my humiliation, I realized something with complete, crystalline clarity. They had absolutely no idea what they'd just walked into, and they were about to find out. Let me back up, because to understand what happened that Tuesday afternoon in November, you need to understand what the 3 years before it looked like. You need to understand who we were before I became the family's cautionary tale, before I became Jessica's content, before my dad started telling the neighbors I'd gone crazy chasing get-rich-quick schemes. My name is Charlton Jameson. I know, I've been hearing about the name my whole life. My mom wanted something distinguished. My dad wanted something forgettable. They compromised on something that got me called Carlton by every substitute teacher until I was 17. I grew up in Spokane, Washington, in a house that smelled like coffee grounds and disappointment. Not because we were poor, but because my father, Gerald Jameson, had decided at some point in his 40s that disappointment was the appropriate response to most things in life. Dad sold insurance, had been selling insurance for 22 years by the time I left home. He was good at it, in the way that people who've done one thing forever get good at it, reflexively, joylessly, competently. He drove a 2019 Chevy Tahoe that he called the truck and talked about with more warmth than he talked about his kids. Mom, Linda Jameson, taught Sunday school and ran the church bake sale committee and told everyone in their congregation about everything happening in our family, usually edited to cast herself as the long-suffering heroine of whatever story she was telling. She had a gift for that. Taking any event, any ordinary Wednesday afternoon conflict between siblings, any career setback, any minor disagreement, and restructuring it so that she'd been abandoned and suffered and ultimately endured. Jessica was 4 years younger than me, 24 at the time of everything I'm about to tell you. She'd started a lifestyle/reality account called Keeping It Real with Jess sometime around her sophomore year of college and had built it to about 180,000 followers by filming her life, her apartment, her outfits, her opinions, and increasingly her family, specifically me. I had become a recurring character in her content, the brother who wasted his potential, the brother who chose a fake business over his real family, the brother who served, she told her audience repeatedly, as a lesson in what not to do. She posted a photo once, taken without my knowledge at Christmas 3 years ago, of me sitting at my laptop in my childhood bedroom at 1 a.m. She captioned it, "My brother thinks he's going to be the next Elon Musk. Meanwhile, he's broke, alone, and talking to his computer instead of his family. Protect your kids from hustle culture, people." It got 43,000 likes. That was the last Christmas I spent with them. 3 years ago, during that Christmas visit, they sat me down at the dining room table like an intervention. My dad had actually printed an agenda. I'm not joking. A printed, bulleted agenda on the Jameson Mutual Insurance letterhead he had left over from when the company rebranded in 2019. The startup had to go. That was bullet point 1. I would return to school for an MBA or a law degree. That was bullet point 2. I would move back to Spokane, or at minimum back within 2 hours, because my mother's anxiety about my well-being was affecting her blood pressure. That was bullet point 3. I had been building Sentinel Shield for 2 years at that point, a cybersecurity platform that detected and neutralized zero-day vulnerabilities for mid-size enterprises, companies too big to ignore security, too small to afford the enterprise-level tools that the big players were selling. My co-founder, a former NSA analyst named Derek Osee, who I'd met at a hackathon in Portland, had been working nights and weekends with me for the better part of 18 months. We had 12 paying clients. We had a proof of concept that a Series A investor in San Francisco had described in an email I still have saved as genuinely one of the cleanest threat detection architectures I've seen from a team this size. I tried to explain this. I brought out the laptop. I showed them the client dashboard. I tried to walk my dad through what zero-day vulnerability detection actually meant in practical terms. He looked at me for a long moment, "Son," he said, "I have been selling insurance for 22 years. I know the difference between a real business and a fantasy, and I know which one of those you have." My mom reached across the table and put her hand on mine. "We just love you. We don't want to watch you throw your life away." Jessica was filming from across the room. She'd been filming the whole time. I didn't find out until a week later, when a clip of my face, confused, hurt, visibly trying to hold myself together, showed up in one of her videos under the title, "My brother's startup is breaking up our family. Real talk." I drove back to Seattle that night, 8 hours. I pulled over once, in a rest stop outside Ellensburg, and sat in my car in the dark for 20 minutes staring at nothing. Then I called Derek. "They want me to quit," I said. There was a pause. "What do you want to do?" "I want to close the Series A." We did. 7 months later, $4 million. Derek and I bought back 3 of our early client contracts that a competitor had been trying to poach. We hired our first 5 full-time employees. We moved into real office space, not a WeWork, actual leased office space, on the 14th floor of a building in South Lake Union. I sent my parents a card. Just a card. No details, no gloating. "Happy New Year. Hope you're well. C." My mom returned it unopened. There was a sticky note on the envelope in her handwriting. "We'll be here when you're ready to come home." My dad blocked my number. Jessica posted a video called "Cutting Off a Toxic Sibling, My Story," that got 200,000 views and spawned a comment section full of people telling her how brave she was. I let them have it, all of it. The narrative, the pity, the community. I was too busy to fight it. I was building something. The next 2 years moved fast, brutally fast, in the way that good momentum does. You stop tracking individual days and start tracking quarters, funding rounds, product releases. Sentinel Shield's client base grew from 12 to 80 to 400. We got a write-up in Wired magazine that described our threat detection engine as what enterprise cybersecurity should look like in the next decade. We were acquired by... No, wait, let me correct that. We didn't get acquired. We went public. June 14th, 2 years and 7 months after my father handed me a printed intervention agenda. The IPO opened at $24 per share and closed the first day at $31.50. Derek and I rang the bell at NASDAQ remotely. Seattle team in the office, champagne, the whole thing. My net worth on paper was $42 million. I called my mom that night. Force of habit, maybe. Or something more stubborn than that. Some part of me that wasn't ready to be done with the possibility of them. The call went to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I bought a building 8 months later. Not because I needed the investment. Not because some advisor told me to diversify into real estate. I bought it because I'd been renting a 400 square foot studio in it since I first moved to Seattle. And the previous owner, a semi-retired developer named Roy Castellano, had decided he was done being a landlord and was willing to sell the whole thing to someone who'd take care of it. 12 floors, 48 units, $4.2 million. Cash. I kept my name off the public-facing documentation as much as legally possible. Not for tax reasons, not for legal strategy. Honestly, I was just private. I'd learned to be private. I kept my face off LinkedIn, kept my name out of the Seattle Times profile they ran on Sentinel Shield. Let Derek be the face of the company for press purposes because he was better at it and because I had no interest in being seen. I moved into the penthouse. Custom everything. Floor-to-ceiling windows on 3 sides. The Seattle skyline looked like a circuit board at night. Lights grid-patterned and constant. Always something moving. Always something on. I had a security system that fed 16 camera angles to my phone. I had a front desk managed by Marcus Webb, a former hotel concierge I'd poached with an embarrassingly good salary because he was the most competent person I'd ever watched handle a difficult situation. I had a life. A real one. And then Jessica found my old address. She'd done some digging. I don't know exactly how. Probably someone she knew, or someone who knew someone, or the kind of casual digital detective work that people with too much time and a motivated grievance are capable of. But she found the address associated with my name in a records database. Unit 4B, the studio, the apartment I'd lived in for 2 years before the IPO, before I bought the building, before I moved upstairs. She screenshotted it. Sent it to the family group chat I'd been removed from 18 months earlier. Found him. He's still in that tiny dump. He clearly needs us. We're doing an intervention. I know this because Sarah, the PhD student who'd moved into 4B after me, a quiet geology student named Sarah Kimura, who paid her rent 2 days early every month without fail, texted me that same evening. "Hey, just wanted to give you a heads up." I got a weird call from someone asking about a Charlton Jameson who used to live at this address. I said I didn't know you. Seemed off. Sarah. I thanked her. I told her it was probably nothing. I was wrong. 3 days later, at 11:14 a.m. on a Tuesday, my security camera pinged my phone with a motion alert. I was in a board meeting. We had a presentation in progress, 6 people around the table, Derek mid-sentence about Q4 projections. I glanced at the alert. The lobby camera showed my mother walking through the the front door pulling a wheeled suitcase. My dad was behind her with 2 more bags. Jessica was already filming. I excused myself from the board meeting. I walked to my private office, closed the door, and pulled up the full camera feed on my laptop. 16 angles. I watched my family walk into my building like they owned it. The irony settled over me like a coat. I watched for a while before I did anything. I need to be honest about that. Part of me was curious. Part of me, the part that grew up at that dining room table that drove 8 hours in the dark and sat in a rest stop staring at nothing, wanted to see it. Wanted to see exactly who they were when they thought no one was watching. My dad stood in the lobby and looked up at the building directory and laughed. He actually laughed. He pointed at the listing, Jameson Property Management, LLC, and turned to my mom and said something. The lobby audio was good enough that I could make it out. 12 floors of low-income housing. Should have intervened sooner. They took the elevator to floor 4. They knocked on 4B. Sarah answered. She was home. It was mid-morning. She was working on her dissertation. On camera, I could see her face. Polite confusion. The expression of someone trying to figure out if they'd missed a maintenance notice. My mother didn't wait for an invitation. She walked in. My dad followed. Jessica walked in last with her phone out, narrating for her audience. Okay guys, we're going in. This is what Charlton's life looks like right now. This is what happens when you don't listen to your family. The comments on her live stream were already moving fast. 12,000 people. I could see the count in the corner of the frame when she turned her phone to film the room. Sarah said something. I couldn't hear it clearly. She was off mic range, but her body language was unmistakable. Arms crossed, stepping slightly back, the posture of someone trying to make themselves small in their own home. My mom was photographing Sarah's kitchen. My dad opened Sarah's refrigerator. He actually opened it, stood there looking at her groceries, her yogurt and her leftover soup and her kombucha and her box of energy bars, and shook his head. No wonder he's struggling, he said. Look at this. He can't even feed himself properly.
Sarah was not struggling. Sarah was a 27-year-old NSF fellowship recipient studying thermal properties of volcanic rock formations. Sarah had a boyfriend, a German shepherd named Ptolemy, and more discipline in her daily routine than most people I'd ever met. Sarah was not my family's charity case, but she was standing in her own kitchen while my dad critiqued her grocery choices on a live stream with 12,000 viewers. I saw her go still.
The kind of still that happens right before someone cries. She turned, walked to the bathroom, and closed the door. My mom photographed the bathroom door. I picked up my phone. Marcus. I had Marcus Webb on speed dial. The people in 4B, they didn't have permission to enter. Their family, mine specifically. Do not let them into any other unit. Already watching it, Marcus said. He'd seen the camera alerts. Should I call anyone? Get Officer Davis. Officer James Davis, 13 years with the Seattle PD, currently serving as a community liaison officer for the South Lake Union District, was a man I knew because he was Sarah Kimura's boyfriend. He came over for dinner sometimes. He'd helped me figure out the right way to handle a noise complaint situation 6 months back. He was calm, thorough, and deeply unimpressed by people who thought authority was something to perform rather than exercise. Marcus texted him. Davis was already on his way, because Sarah had already called him from the bathroom. I closed my laptop, stood up, straightened my jacket, a Loro Piana Merino that I'd bought without looking at the price tag and that would have given my father an aneurysm if he knew what it cost. I walked to the private elevator at the end of the hall, pressed 4 and waited. The elevator smelled like cedar. I'd had it redone 6 months ago. Small thing. I'd wanted it to feel like the building had been cared for. The doors opened on floor 4. My mother saw me first. There you are! She moved toward me with her arms out, the way she always did when she was performing relief. Not the quiet relief of a mother who'd been genuinely worried, but the theatrical relief of someone who'd been telling a story about worry for 3 years and was now delivering the climax. Look at this place you're living in. We've been so worried. We told you, this isn't where I live. She stopped, blinked. What? I live upstairs. I kept my voice even. This is Sarah's apartment. Sarah Kimura, PhD student, Department of Earth and Space Sciences at UW. She's been living here for 2 years. She pays her rent on time. She's a good tenant. My dad stepped forward. He'd been in the doorway with his arms crossed, the pose he defaulted to when he wanted to look like a man in charge of a situation. Stop embarrassing yourself, Charlton. We drove 5 hours. We came here because we care about you and you want to play games. Gerald. He looked up. Officer James Davis had come up the stairwell. He'd taken the stairs, not the elevator, because Davis was the kind of person who took the stairs. He was in plain clothes, off duty, but he had his badge on his belt because Marcus had asked him to make it visible. According to city records, Officer Davis said, producing his phone with the county assessor's page pulled up, your son owns this entire building. He purchased it 8 months ago for $4.2 million. The registered entity is Jameson Property Management, LLC. He turned the phone to face my dad. The silence presence in the hallway had texture. I could feel it. Jessica's live stream was still running. I could see it in my peripheral vision, the red dot on her phone, the little viewer count ticking. Whatever had been 12,000 was climbing now. She'd been narrating the whole walk-up. The audience had seen everything. They were seeing this too. That's impossible, my mother whispered. I pulled out my phone, opened the Sentinel Property Management app. We'd integrated a custom security dashboard when we set up the building systems. 16 camera angles. Every floor, the lobby, the elevators, the roof deck, and Unit 4B, from the moment my family walked in. I've been watching you for 2 hours, I said. My dad grabbed for my phone. I let him take it. I watched him look at the screen. I watched his face. Gerald Jameson had spent 22 years selling people on the importance of being prepared, on knowing your risk, on understanding that the world was full of possibilities you hadn't accounted for, and that a prudent man protected himself against them. He had not protected himself against this. This has to be fraud, he said. His voice had gone flat. The salesman's register, the confident, warm, slightly too loud voice he used for everything, was completely gone. What was left underneath it was quieter and older than I expected. Sir? Officer Davis took the phone back from my dad with a calm, patient gesture, the way you take something from someone who doesn't realize they're holding it wrong. I need to explain some things to you. Entering a residential unit without the resident's permission, that's breaking and entering. Accessing and photographing the unit, that's harassment. The 911 dispatch received a call from this address approximately 40 minutes ago that described an emergency that didn't exist. That's filing a false report. He paused. Those are 3 separate misdemeanors, potentially a felony on the 3rd count, depending on how the DA wants to characterize the intent. My dad was still staring at my phone. Jessica had turned off her live stream. I know she did because I saw her thumb move to the button, saw her press it, saw the red dot disappear. Smart move. 40 seconds too late, but a smart move. The clips are already out there, I said quietly. Not to hurt her, just to be accurate. They were screenshotting in real time. It's already on Twitter. Reddit's probably got a thread. She looked at me, and for the first time since she'd thrown her jacket in my face, she looked like someone I used to know. Younger, uncertain. The way she'd looked when she was 20 and had just started college, and called me once to ask if she was going to be okay. I'd told her yes. I wasn't sure what I'd tell her now. Officer Davis stepped away to make a call. I could hear him low-talking into his phone. He was calling his precinct contact, letting them know the situation, keeping a record. He was thorough. He was the kind of cop who documented things because he understood that undocumented events had a way of becoming contested later. My mom was sitting on the hallway bench now. She'd sat down at some point during the last 5 minutes, though I hadn't seen it happen. She was holding the Target bag. Inside it, I knew, were 2 packs of instant ramen and a clearance rack flannel shirt in a size that would have been right about 4 years ago. She'd bought these things to give to me. She'd carried them 5 hours to give them to me. She was staring at the bag. Sarah came out of the bathroom. She'd been in there for a while. Her eyes were red. Her boyfriend was in the hallway now, standing a careful, professional distance away from her, doing the thing that people who love cops learn to do, not going to him, not breaking his concentration while he was working, trusting him to come to her when it was right. I went to Sarah first. I'm so sorry, I said. I'm sorry this happened in your home. I'm going to make sure it's documented. If you want to press charges independently of anything I decide, I know, she said. Her voice was steady, which told me she'd had time to settle in the bathroom. James already told me my options. Whatever you want, I'll back you up completely. She nodded, looked at my family, looked back at me. They really didn't know? She said. They really didn't know. She shook her head slowly. That's almost worse. Officer Davis came back. He looked at me directly. Mr. Jameson, he had his notepad out. Old habit. Davis kept a paper notepad even in the age of digital everything, because he said juries responded better to handwriting than to typed reports. Do you want to press charges? I looked at my family. My mom with her Target bag. My dad with his arms at his sides now, no longer crossed, no longer performing authority, just a 61-year-old man in a building hallway looking at a son he didn't recognize. Jessica watching her phone with an expression I can only describe as free fall. I'd check later after everything settled. She lost 34,000 followers in the 4 hours after the clips spread. Her sponsorship contact from a skincare brand emailed to pause their partnership pending the current situation. Her most recent video, a morning routine she'd posted 2 days ago, had its comment section overrun. They'd come here to humiliate me in front of the world. They'd handed me the camera instead. My phone buzzed. I looked down. Breaking. Viral family intervention video reveals Seattle Tech CEO worth 42 mailers. Police called. Charges pending. Cairo 7 news alert. I showed it to no one. Just read it. Put my phone back in my pocket. Took a slow breath. Officer Davis, I said. Give me a few minutes with them. He nodded. Stepped to the end of the hallway. I want to be careful here about what I'm going to tell you, because I know what you're expecting. You're expecting the speech, the vindication monologue, the moment where I list everything they said and everything they did and everything they were wrong about, and I deliver it like a verdict, clean and final. I thought about that speech. I'd had 3 years to write it, but standing there in the hallway of my building, looking at my mother with her clearance rack shirt and her ramen, I felt something I hadn't anticipated. Not forgiveness. I want to be clear about that. It wasn't some hallmark moment where I looked into their eyes and found understanding. What I felt was something more uncomfortable than forgiveness. Something more like grief. These were people who had convinced themselves, completely, that they were doing the right thing. My dad had driven 5 hours because he genuinely believed I was failing. My mom had bought me instant ramen because in her mind, that was what I needed. They had been wrong about everything. My situation, my choices, my capacity, my life. But the wrongness had come from something real. Something that had started a long time ago as love. It had curdled. It had become something controlling and dismissive, and in the end, genuinely harmful. But it had started as something else. I thought about what to say for a long moment. You had 12,000 people watching, I finally said. You were going to show them what a bad life looks like. You were going to use me as a lesson. No one spoke. I understand why you thought that. I understand that from the information you had, from everything I let you believe. That's what it looked like. I paused. But here's the thing about information. You didn't have it because you didn't ask for it. You didn't call. You didn't write. You blocked me. You returned my letters. And when Jessica found an address that was 3 years out of date, you got in a car and drove 5 hours to film my humiliation instead of sending a text to ask how I was doing. My dad opened his mouth. I'm not finished, I said. He closed it. I'm not pressing charges. Not today. I looked at Officer Davis. Thank you, James. I'll have Marcus get you whatever documentation you need for your report. And Sarah, I turned to her, whatever you decide to do is completely your call. I'll support it either way. Sarah looked at her boyfriend. He gave her a small nod. Whatever they communicated in that look, it was theirs. I'm not pressing charges either, she said quietly, but I want it documented. It will be, Davis said. I turned back to my family. You're going to leave the building now, I said. Not because I'm throwing you out, because there's nothing here for you today. Not until some things change. Charlton, my mother started. Mom, my voice was gentler than I expected it to be. Go home. Think about what happened today. Think about the fact that you spent 3 years deciding who I was without ever asking. And then, if you want to, call me. My number hasn't changed. You just blocked it. My dad was looking at me with an expression I hadn't seen on his face before. It took me a moment to identify it. It was shame, not performance. Not the strategic retreat of someone recalibrating. Actual shame, sitting in the corners of his eyes and the set of his jaw, the kind that arrives when a story you've told yourself for years collides with reality at full speed. He didn't say anything. None of them did. They picked up their bags. All 3 of them. They walked to the elevator. Jessica paused at the elevator doors. She turned back. I didn't know, she said. I know, I said. That's the point. The elevator doors closed. I stayed in the hallway for a while after they left. Marcus came up and checked on me. He'd been monitoring from the lobby and had seen the whole thing on the camera feed. He offered coffee. I said yes, mostly to give him something to do, because Marcus was the kind of person who needed to be useful during difficult moments. I stood at the 4th floor hallway window and looked out at the street below. I watched a silver Tahoe, not my dad's but similar, pull into traffic and merge and disappear. My phone had 53 notifications. I turned it face down. The Cairo 7 alert had done what Cairo 7 alerts do. By evening, 3 other outlets had picked up the story. By the next morning, it was on national blogs and had a Reddit mega thread with 8,000 comments and a quote tweet chain that had been running for 12 hours. Someone clipped the moment Officer Davis read out the building's purchase price and put it on TikTok with a sound effect that I found genuinely funny in spite of everything. A reporter from the Seattle Times, not the one who'd profiled Sentinel Shield, a different one from the Metro desk, emailed my company's press contact asking for comment. Derek texted me a screenshot of the email with a single message. Your call, boss. I'll handle it however you want. I told him no comment for now. Not because I was hiding, because there was nothing I needed to add. The story had told itself. The cameras had done the work. Jessica took down her social media accounts that evening. All of them. The videos, the channel, the Instagram, the TikTok, gone. I found out from a mutual acquaintance 2 weeks later that she'd taken a leave of absence from something, a part-time marketing job she'd been doing alongside the content, and had gone to stay with a college friend in Portland. My dad called me 9 days later. He used my mother's phone because he'd blocked his own number from mine and hadn't gotten around to unblocking it. That detail, the fact that he used my mother's phone, that he'd had to think about how to call me, that the act of calling had required that much logistical consideration, told me something about where he was. The call lasted 4 minutes. He said he was sorry. He said it once, plainly, without the architecture of justification that I'd expected, without the, but you have to understand, or the, we were just worried that I'd braced for. He said it the way people say things they've been rehearsing alone and are afraid won't come out right. It came out right. I didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't, not yet, maybe not for a long time, but I said I heard him. I said I'd call him next week. I did. 3 months later. It's February now. The Seattle skyline from my penthouse windows is doing the thing it does in winter, where the low clouds sit right at the waterline and the city lights reflect off them from below, so the whole thing glows from the middle like a lantern. Sarah Kimura successfully defended her dissertation chapter on subglacial volcanic thermal dynamics. She sent me a bottle of wine with a note that said, "I'm naming a geological formation after you, the Jameson intrusion." It seemed appropriate. I laughed for a long time at that. Sentinel Shield had a good Q4. Derek is handling most of the public-facing work, which is how we both like it. I've been thinking about the next thing. There's a healthcare data security problem I've been looking at for 8 months that no one has solved cleanly yet. I had dinner with my parents last month. Just dinner. In Spokane, at a restaurant near their house. Nothing fancy. My dad paid. He insisted on it in a way that was about more than the check, and I let him. Jessica and I have texted. Not called. Texted. Short things. She asked me once if I was angry. I told her I was working on not being. She said that was fair. I think it is. She hasn't rebuilt her social media presence. I don't know if she will. That's her work to do, not mine. What I know is this. They came to my building that November morning with ramen and clearance clothes and a live stream and 3 years of certainty that they understood exactly who I was and what my life looked like. They walked through a door they thought was mine and found a life they'd never imagined and a person they hadn't asked to know. They had the camera. I had the building. And 12,000 people watched them learn the difference.